Hey, we've spoken today a lot about the national and state foster care situation, about how churches can begin to get involved. And as a parting thought for today, we want to consider the power of teamwork, of leadership, and being all in. That seems to be the theme today and a goal. So our next speaker has a tremendous understanding of all of that. Coach Neal Brown was named West Virginia University's 35th head coach in 2019. Since arriving in Morgantown, Coach Brown has covered a lot of territory representing Mountaineer Football as its chief ambassador, promoting program leadership by the players, and above all, a dedication to individual student athletes. He's had many successes here as the head coach for WVU, including bringing the Black Diamond Trophy home for the first time since 2003 over 15th ranked Virginia Tech. Any Hokie fans out there? If you are a Hokie fan, don't say anything, okay? Winning the 2020 AutoZone Liberty Bowl against Army in his first bowl appearance as West Virginia's head coach, and having multiple players earn All-American honors and named to the All-Big 12 Conference team. He and his wife, Brooke, have 3 children, 2 daughters, Adeline and Ansley, and a son, Dax. Let's give a warm welcome to Coach Neal Brown.
Thank you, Adam. You look a lot better than last time I saw you. Last time I saw Adam was at the spring game, and he had a severe sunburn, okay? No, thank you all for being here. How about, give a hand for Josh. What a great story. I've really enjoyed kind of watching his family's journey from a distance, and so grateful to be able to follow along. I'd be lying if I didn't tell you I've spoken in more comfortable settings, okay? So if lightning strikes while I'm in this pulpit, I apologize in advance. I am comforted because I grew up in the Baptist church, and I see that we have several Baptists because y'all sitting way in the back, okay? So I do relate to that. So I appreciate being here. Thanks to Chestnut Ridge Church and Pastor Tim. He's asked me to do one thing in the 2+ years that I've known him, and it's to come speak at this event. And so when he sent me an email, I was definitely going to be here. I also want to say thanks to Greg Clutter for putting this together. What a wonderful event. Yeah, give him a hand. It's been great. And then also to Steve Finn, who's sitting down here in the front, and appreciate him including me in this event as well. I want to show a video, and then we'll go from here.
The Mountaineers to me is basically everything. You know, I played here at WVU, so, you know, the blue and gold runs in my veins as well.
The Mountaineers to me are just a lifetime of memories. It's just pure joy waking up on game days and being a Mountaineer. It's just something that's unparalleled.
To me, the Mountaineers represent state pride. They work hard every week. They always show up. They always show out. And whether or not they win or lose that game, the next morning we all wake up and we're all still Mountaineers.
The influence they have on the town, the people. I love to see the people coming in from out of town to support the team. It's a special thing to be a part of.
This is my second home, and the Mountaineers, I feel like I have turned into a Mountaineer.
So I want to put that video in context, and I'm going to tell you why I played it. So that video was right at the end of the 2020 season. That was the year of COVID. And it was meant as a kind of a thank you, and during that time, everybody was coming together. And how many West Virginia graduates or fans? And I figured it'd be predominantly, okay. How many people from the state of West Virginia? Okay, so I'm really speaking to those two groups I just asked. Like, did you feel emotion when you're watching that video? Did you feel like, man, we're together? Did you feel like state pride, West Virginia pride? May even been a let's go, right? But that video drives emotion. You can feel it. You know, especially if you're from here, or if you went to school, or you're just a big fan, you might, the hair on your arms might have raised a little bit. It drives emotion, and sport does that. Athletics do that. It's one of the things that really drives our industry is emotion. And I want you to remember that. Just hold on to that feeling just for a second. I want to read you some data that Greg sent me not too long ago. West Virginia, highest per capita rate of children in foster care of any state. Nearly 7,000 children in foster care. These last two are the ones that really got me. For every 1,000 babies that are born in the state of West Virginia, 25% of them are removed, all right, due to maltreatment. Think about that. 25% out of every 1,000 are removed. That's 3 times the national average. And then this one really got me. 40,000, it's estimated that 40,000 children, 40,000, 2/3 of Mountaineer Field, filled with children that are being raised by their grandparents. Now, what emotion did that drive? I saw that. I had a meeting with Greg and Steve, and we were kind of going over, they were explaining to me and talking about the issue in our state, and we're talking about this event. And then Greg, a couple days later, sent me that data. I remembered, I was sitting at my computer, and he sends me that, and we were working on a video at the time. And I said, that can't be right. My office overlooks Mountaineer Field. When I read that, 40,000, that's 2/3 of Mountaineer Field filled with children that they're currently being raised by their grandparents. So think about that emotion. And I've been asked, this has been on my calendar. So there's 3 people in my office that have access to my calendar. I say my office. One of them runs my household. That's not my office. That's my wife. Okay. And she's the boss. And then Lori Rice, who's our administrative assistant, and then Coleman Barnes, who's our chief of staff. Well, Coleman and Lori in the last couple of weeks have asked me, hey, I saw something on Foster, West Virginia. How'd you get involved in that? And so I was like, well, that's how I need to lead with this. And so here's why this is something that's passionate for me, is I think why you do what you do is really, really important, okay? And so I want to kind of explain this to you, and I'm going to bring you in a circle back to this. So I'm in coaching. That's profession. But really, for me, it's teaching. And I got in this because I really wanted to be involved in the development of young people. Just the development of young people. That's what really drove me into coaching. When I got into this, I had no idea I'd be the head coach at West Virginia. I had no idea that I'd have the resources or the access to things that I have. I had no idea. I knew that athletics had really given me everything in my life to this point. Not everything, but a lot of things in my life. And how can I give back? How could I be involved in young people? And it started with this. So some of you probably have heard this, some of you haven't. My background, I grew up in schools. So my dad was a high school teacher and a coach. Then he was a guidance counselor. Then he was assistant principal, and he was a principal. My mom was an elementary school librarian. My uncle, my mom's side, coached basketball. So I would go to his practices and games. 3 out of my 4 grandparents were teachers. My dad's dad was a coach, teacher, principal, superintendent. My dad's mom taught typing, right? I'm looking out in the obvious. Some of you all took typing. Some of you are like, what is typing, right? Okay, but I'm looking out here. Some of you took typing. So I actually took typing in high school too, so I'm aging myself as well. And then my grandmother on my mom's side, my mom's mom, she taught third grade for 40 plus years. Then I went and married a teacher, and both her parents are teachers, right? But anyway, so my whole background is in education. My mother taught, she was an elementary school librarian, and she taught in the same schools for 29 years. My grandmother taught, I just told you, in 40 years. My dad spent his whole career in education in public schools for 29 years. He was in 2 different school systems. My grandfather on my dad's side, he was in the same school system. And the thing that drove the thread that combined all those school systems, they were in school systems that were high, all right, that free or reduced lunch. So if you're in the school system, you kind of know what that means, right? They were in not well-to-do areas. They grew up with a high number of kids that lived with their grandparents. We had several foster families within our neighborhood where I grew up in Bardstown, Kentucky. And so my entire background is being in education and really having a heart for young people. And that was driven through me at a very young age all the way through with my parents. So why have passion for this? I think it starts right there. I want to tell you a story, and I don't know if this is being taped. Y'all take this out, okay? So I'm going to tell a story. I don't tell this very often of really how my wife and I got to West Virginia. So before, some of you all know this, some of you don't. Before I was here at West Virginia, I was a head coach at Troy University. Troy is in small rural Alabama, Troy, Alabama. The town's about 12,500, and combined, the university has about 6,000 students. And it was actually our second tenure in Troy. We were there as an assistant coach for 4 years and then the head coach for 4 years. And we had just won our bowl game in December of 2018. And my wife and I were back in Danville, Kentucky. And that's where I went to high school. My wife grew up. That's where both of our families still remain, is in Danville, Kentucky. And it was a few days after Christmas, and I got a call from our athletic director here, Shane Lyons. And we were at a point in our lives where we'd had a lot of success at Troy. We'd won 31 games in 3 years. We just won our 3rd bowl game in a row. We'd beaten LSU in 2017. We'd beaten Nebraska in 2018. And we just won 10 games playing with a backup quarterback. Our starting quarterback got hurt in Game 5, and we finished second in our league and won a bowl game in 2018. And just really in kind of a tired space. And we'd had some opportunities earlier in December before the bowl game for some jobs. And either we didn't think it was the right move for us, or they chose somebody else, which is the reality of our business sometimes. And so we got back, and it was the first time we'd been back to Kentucky in a long time, and we were just tired. And the last thing we were thinking about was making a move. And so Shane called and said, hey, we have reason to believe that our head coach is going to leave. Our current head coach is going to leave. If he does, we wanted to find out if you'd be interested. And it kind of caught me by surprise. The job wasn't open. It wasn't posted. Hadn't seen anything on a computer or TV about it. And I said, yes, because when somebody asks you something, you don't shut doors. You find information. So I said yes. And so a couple days later, he called and said, hey, and then I saw it. Dana was leaving, and he said, can you meet? I said, well, yeah, I'd love to meet. One problem, I don't have anything but jeans. He said, no problem, we're West Virginia. All right. Well, I'll say this. I showed up in jeans to the interview because that's all I had. They had suits on. So, and he goes, one request. Our president is coming, and he wants your wife present. Well, in these head coaches interviews, that's never the case. I'd interviewed for a bunch of head coaching jobs, and that was the first time that a president had ever been involved, and it was the first time that my wife had ever been asked to attend. So I said, well, okay, that's unique. And so we drove and went to Lexington, 45 minutes. And on the way, we have 3 kids, so you all, I can't hold with Josh with 6 right now. I can't imagine 6. Like 3, I'm like, whoo. My wife's been out of town. She got back late last night. I had them Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, and I felt like, man, I've accomplished something. I've really accomplished something. All the men in this, I went to a conference, a leadership conference. This is not on my paper, but I wanted to share. So I went to a leadership conference last week, and one of the presenters at this conference was a very successful woman in talent management. And she made this comment about unseen work. And she was talking about females that are mothers that are in leadership roles, and she made this comment about unseen work. And it kind of just, I said, so I got her off to the side. We were in a small group, and I said, Thayer, what do you mean by unseen work? And she says, do you have toothpaste? Do you have toilet paper? And I was like, yeah. She's like, do you buy it? Great point. And so she started telling me about unseen work, all the work that mothers do that is unseen. And I was like, man, that is so true. And so I got home, first thing I did was tell my wife, I appreciate the unseen work. So men, if you're married and your wife works, go tell them thank you for unseen work, because you'll get some brownie points. But back on subject. And so we had some quiet time on the ride to Lexington. It's 45 minutes. And I told my wife, I was like, man, I'm exhausted. I don't know if I have the energy to go and start something new, because I didn't know it was going to be the rebuilding project that it has been. I didn't know that at the time. But I know anytime you start something new, man, it takes a lot out of you. And you got to be full of energy to go attack that. And I really was in a tired state. I really was. Those jobs that are small and like Troy, you have to do so many things, and they'll wear you out if you're not careful. And I was really tired. And so we went to Lexington, and we met at a hotel there, and we met for a long time. And we had a little break, and then Gordon Gee came in. Have y'all had an opportunity to meet Gordon? Man, if I can have his energy at his age, you think, but he's been a college president longer than I've been alive. It's unbelievable. And he may have more energy than I do. So Gordon comes in, and he comes in, and he starts talking. And I knew who he was. I knew that he speaks openly. He speaks freely. He's gotten himself in trouble a few times doing that too. But he came in, and what he talked about, because my wife asked this question. He gave a little spill. My wife said, Dr. Gee, why did you come back to West Virginia? And he gave a quick answer about, this is where I started. But then he made a really good point, okay? He made a really good point. He said, I came back because they gave me my start, and from the people, he goes, but I want to flip this, and I'm going to tell you what makes the football job at West Virginia totally unique to college athletics. And he went through this, and it was very eloquently done. And he talked about how, as the head coach of the football program at West Virginia, you can affect the university, and then the university can affect the entire state. And what he talked about was the feeling and the sense of pride that comes from successful football program and men's basketball program, and what that does to the entire state. And he did it, and so we got in the car after the interview, and we were driving home. And my wife, we kind of got in the car and didn't say a whole lot. And I finally said, what do you think? And she looks at me, she's like, what do you mean, what do you think? And she's like, and she asked me this, well, why did you get into coaching? Same thing I told you, develop young people. And it goes back to this, I want to make a difference. And she said, what other place can we make a bigger difference in the state of West Virginia? And we never said, hey, we got to take this job. It was just assumed from that point, if we were going to have an opportunity to make a difference, then it had to be West Virginia. So they called later that night, and the ball got rolling, and on January 6th, we were fortunate to be here, and we've been here ever since, and we're excited about being here. And as I thought about what I wanted to talk about, when we think about this Foster West Virginia initiative, I really believe our churches can do some of the same things. And I'm guilty when I look at a problem. I'm like, man, this is so big. Like this foster care problem we have in our state of West Virginia is so big, right? Like, where do you start? And then Steve and Greg, they talked to me over the course of me thinking about it. I'm like, I get it. Like, so how do we start? How do we take big problems and make them smaller? Well, it starts on the micro level. It starts in our churches. It absolutely starts in our churches. You can call me old school or whatever, but I still believe that the pillar in our community, especially small communities, and there are no big communities in West Virginia, by the way, okay? So the pillar of the community still should be the church. In so many of our places, it still is the church. So how do we tackle a big problem? It starts on the micro level, and it starts at our churches. And they explain the team approach, all right? And then I've either sit in these chairs or I've watched on Sunday mornings, and I've watched Josh, and I watched Pastor Tim, and I've watched our leadership team here at the church talk and give real examples of people and how this team approach to foster care, to finding families, and give them the resources and the people to support them. I'm like, man, this is how it works. How do we beat big problems? We break them down into small ones. And the church plays such a huge role in that, and it can place a huge role. And I started thinking about that. Just like the football program, just like that emotion you felt when you watched that video. Some of you love football, you know everything about football. Some of you don't care anything about football, but you love West Virginia. And so when you watched that video, man, you were driven by emotion. You felt part of something. Well, the football can affect the university. The football program can affect the university. The university affects the state, the entire state of West Virginia. It's the same here. And I wrote this down. So the church jumps in, says, I want to be part of Foster, West Virginia. Your individual church. Well, maybe that causes a couple other churches within the community to say, well, I see what they're doing. We're in comparison time right now, right? I got my 14-year-old daughter. We're compared against everything. So maybe a couple more churches in the community say, oh, I see what they're doing. That's powerful. I get that. Because we may be Baptists, we may be Christians, we may be Methodists, oh, even Catholics, right? Same Jesus, right? So when we see good being done in one, we want to try to replicate that, right? So it starts at the micro level with these churches. 1, then it's 2 and 3. Then we transform a community. We tackle the issue within our communities, and it goes to the state level. And it can be done. I love the teamwork aspect of this. You think about it. We always, if you were a recruit, I had a recruit right before I was at a banquet, my daughter's athletic award banquet. But before that, I was meeting with a recruit. And I always talk about a recruit. I say, hey, the student athlete is at the center of everything we do. And what we try to do is we try to surround that student athlete with experts and resources. So if you're a student athlete in the football program, we surround them with academic experts that are going to help them to get to their degree. We have mental health and sports psychologists, experts. They're going to help them with their mental health and mindfulness. We have nutrition experts. We have strength and conditioning experts. We have athletic training experts. We have football coaches, position experts. But we surround that student athlete with the resources and the experts needed. And it's the same here. Because what we do is we take that foster child and we surround them with the people and the resources and the expert that can help them be their best. And that, to me, is what Foster West Virginia is all about. They told me they wanted to talk about all in. And this is how I want to kind of finish this. And so all in, what does that mean? We talk about it with our football players. That's a term we use a lot within our program at West Virginia. And to give you a visual of what that means is anything that you're passionate about, anything that you really care about, I don't think you can ride the fence on it. You can't just dip your toe in something that maybe, well, football terms. You know, I kind of like football. You know, I kind of like practice. But I'm a little scared sometimes. I don't want to give everything I have because maybe it won't go the way I want it to go. Maybe something won't work out just how I foresee it happening. So what happens, we have a bunch of guys that play our game that kind of ride the fence. When things are going well, man, we're in. Things aren't going well, oh, I don't know about that. That's a them problem. And what I try to talk to them about is this, is if you're passionate about something and you really care about something, why wouldn't you just go all in on it? Because if you go all in on it, even if the results aren't the best, you'll feel pretty good about it at the end of the day. And I always leave them with this question. Do you think people that go all in regret going all in, even if it doesn't go the way they want it to go? I'll repeat that. Do you think people that go all in, I'm talking about they give all their time, all their energy, all their effort, in my case in the game of football, and it doesn't go the way you want to, do you think people regret and say, man, I wish I didn't give so much effort? I don't believe that ever happens. I believe regret works the other way. Well, if only I'd worked a little harder. If I had only studied a little bit longer on my opponent, correct? I think it goes here. You think any church to this point that's jumped in with Foster West Virginia has regretted doing it? You think anybody that's gone all in on foster care, even if their experience didn't go exactly the way they wanted it? Because my bet is, now you're probably not supposed to bet in the pulpit, Tim, so I apologize. All right? But my bet is that even if it didn't go the way they wanted to, man, they still feel really good about it. And they still really feel powerful about the impact they're making. So my push to you all is this. Why wouldn't you take this initiative? Why wouldn't you take this back to your home church and say, hey, listen, let's talk about what's happening at Chestnut Ridge. How can we mirror what they're doing and make a difference in foster care for children in West Virginia? Thank you all for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you all for being part of this. You all have a great day.